All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Elizabeth Blackney. I'm the Chief Communications Officer here at Every Woman Treaty. We really appreciate all of you joining us and your support for women and girls around the world. Here at Every Woman Treaty, for those of you who are new to Every Woman, I really want to just kind of set a couple of grounding ideas about who we are as an organization. There are 1,700 members of this coalition. It's very diverse. They're in 128 countries around the world, 843 or more organizations. We're growing every day. And why a treaty? Why Every Woman Treaty? Why today? We know that treaties are global game changers. The working group and global experts have worked very hard for the last 7 years to study the normative, legal, and geographical gaps around the lives of women and girls. We know that in a time of crisis, that women and girls are disproportionately affected by violence, by economic violence, and by any form of discrimination, and certainly are subjected to domestic and interpersonal violence. No time has that been more evident than the last 100 days or so here, anywhere in the world. We know that governments knew that a pandemic would come. There's been a lot of finger pointing about who was responsible for their responses, how they protected their citizens. What we also know is that women and girls have been disproportionately affected by violence every moment of every day for centuries. And governments knew that too. And they didn't take any steps. They still haven't taken any steps. And what we've seen during the COVID and coronavirus pandemic, and many World Health experts know that this is just a preview of the years ahead of us, where there may be more pandemics. And we know that they haven't done anything to protect women and girls. We shouldn't have to have a code word at a pharmacy to make a difference, to save our lives. We should never have to do that. But women are doing it every day. And we know that there have been spikes in violence around the world because women and girls are forced to shelter from their abusers each and every day. That is also unacceptable. Governments knew that that was happening. And so Every Woman Treaty is here. We have incredible experts who have studied this. They have developed a core platform that addresses each and every issue everywhere in the world to ensure that every woman and girl gets to live a life free from fear and free from violence. So I also want to share that here at Every Woman, all of us are very aware of the moment that we are in globally, not just in the United States. We have staff all around the world. What we know is that the tragic death of George Floyd, and that police violence affects people in many countries, not just in the United States. And it does feel like there's a reckoning happening in the United States, and it's inspiring people around the world to tune in to their fellow human beings, to understand what it means to experience police violence. But what everybody here knows is that sexualized violence is the number 2 form of police misconduct everywhere in the world. So it's important to take a moment to just understand what women and girls and Black people and people of color all over the world know, is that it is time for global systems change. It is not a time to be silent, that our silence contributes to violence. And so we want to take a moment, just a beat, for all of us to think about not only George Floyd and his family, but also the Black women around the world who are failed by the police or brutalized by the police, like Breonna Taylor here in the United States, Vera, who is an incredible young student from Nigeria, who was terrorized in a church just this last weekend. And we know that these lockdowns, there are so many intersecting points for women and girls around the world. So we just want to take a moment with each one of you here and just hold some space for the women and girls who, and people of color who suffer from police violence and any form of interpersonal or domestic or sexualized violence. We'll just take a moment. All right, thank you everybody for taking that moment with us. We deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. Now I'm going to introduce you to someone who is known to many and beloved by all who know her. The founding steering committee co-chair here at Every Woman Treaty is also the first Nigerian president of the Medical Women's International Association. She is a physician. She is a leader and a powerhouse force beyond all comprehension. Many of you know that I love doctors who do frontline work to change women's lives, like my previous boss, Dr. Denny Mukwege, was the 2018 Nobel Peace Prize. And I think the one thing that heartens this work for me, and why I'm excited for all of you to meet Dr. Nwadinobi, if you don't already know her, is that there are 1,700 Dr. Mukwege's, 1,700 people here at Every Woman who are definitely going to transform the world. And Eleanor, if you would like to go ahead and tell us what brings you to the work and what's the situation in Nigeria these days.
Thank you, Elizabeth. In Nigeria, in my Igbo language, I would welcome my sisters and brothers, and I would say, no, ndewo una biala, which means welcome. Why do I care? I care, first of all, because of humanity. I care because as a physician and as a frontline activist, I have seen, but I have not conquered yet. But there's hope, my friends, because when I came into this work, I came in looking at harmful traditional practices against widows at a time 25 years ago when widows were being asked to drink the water in which their husbands' bodies had been bathed. But my dear friends, we were able to work with other activists just like you listening today to bring about change with a law. I joined the Every Woman Treaty, working on widows of all ages at a time when widows were being thought of as the elderly. I had just been confronted with child widows. You might ask yourself, child widows? Indeed, girls who had been married off as children, and a married person who loses their husband is a widow. Today, my dear friends, that type of violence is one of the several in the spectrum of the types of violence that the Every Woman Treaty has been looking at over more than a 6-year period. And WHO tells us that what we are seeing is 1 in 3 women and girls who have undergone one type of violence or the other. Enter COVID-19, a global pandemic of great proportions from a virus. And we were told, lock down. And in the middle of that, women are being locked in with abusers, locked in the cycle of poverty, locked away from friends and sisters and worship, locked within a mental health maze, locked until the door of endless opportunities and possibilities is opened by you and I. So what are we seeing, my dear friends? Not just in Nigeria, but around the world, a disproportionate impact on women and girls that has rolled back any gains that we might have had. Those inequalities have been deepened. We don't have the disaggregated data yet, but we have stories of increased, in exponential form, violence within the homes, increased child marriages in response to economic oppression, increased female genital mutilation because human rights defenders are not there, increase in mental health challenges, increase in prisons, releasing prisoners who are sexual offenders, releasing them back into our communities. And what are we having? Because of increased comorbidities and a recent study showing issues around the Y chromosome, sadly, our men have died more due to COVID-19. And the Global Fund for Widows is telling us that they have numbers of 3.2 million widows already in 2020. We have the UK Domestic Charity Refuge reporting a 700% increase in calls to a helpline in one day. We've had the report out of South Africa of 87,000 incidents of gender-based violence within the first 21-day national lockdown. Here in Nigeria, the country head of Nigeria told us that there was a threefold increase in 22 states in the first 2 weeks of lockdown. My dear friends, now more than ever is the time for system change. Let's confront this pandemic within the pandemic. What we have here are intersecting pandemics. What we have here is not just a human rights issue, we have a public health issue. But with a robust and integrated response, we want to send a strong, unequivocal message of solidarity to our survivors. We acknowledge you, our sisters, women and girls forced to shelter with their abusers. We honor the missing, the murdered. Their blood cries out to you and I to stand for this solidarity. In essence, my dear friends, we are calling on every single government on earth to stop this pandemic of violence. We stand for the lives free from violence for every woman and girl everywhere, and for every nation on earth to implement what we know are evidence-based interventions. Let's strengthen those laws. Let's really deliver comprehensive legal reform. Let's train those responders and make sure that our health system responses are up to scratch. Let's provide prevention education. And I have said before, if we can just have appropriate data, but all this cannot happen unless there is dedicated, ring-fenced, targeted, not touched by anything else, but only to address violence against women and girls. We stand in solidarity. I stand with you in solidarity. We stand with our elbows locked in solidarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. It's so grounding and so important for people to understand the stakes. And I wonder if you couldn't tell us a bit about Vera, who is that incredible student. Nigeria is in crisis over this young woman's death. Can you tell us more about the story?
Uwa's story, her local name is Uwa, has brought Nigeria to her knees. And Uwa is one of several, because since Uwa, we have had 2 other gruesome murders from gang rape. I was, trying to look very quickly for, this story is better told by Uwa's mother. She said, what happened to my daughter pains me. It pains me very much because I did not expect that she will die in this horrible manner. When I reached there, I was told that they met her in the church. Her mouth was gagged with a piece of cloth, her eyes blindfolded, her hands tied to her back. When they asked me to describe her, I said, Uwa was not a troublesome person. She's my second daughter, and she was the most gentle of my 5 children. She wore a jean skirt, a white top that morning. The white top was soaked in blood, and it turned red. I cried bitterly. I asked, who did I offend? Even if I offended anyone, I did not promise to pay for my offense with my daughter. The beating was so much. A fire extinguisher that was in the church was used to smash her head. She goes on. She was very disciplined, very intelligent. You cannot beat her in any subject in class. She came first in most of the subjects. She was nice and friendly. She hardly had problems with anyone in the classroom. She was also very honest and truthful. End of quote. It's her mother that best tells the story.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is why we took that beat at the top of the call, is that that women's lives have to be valued, and we will keep you and Nigeria and Uwa and the other 2 young women and their families in our thoughts, and send them light and love. And this is why global systems change is just critical right now. I want to move through our program. Now I'm going to introduce everyone to someone who also understands the work on the front lines. It's so critical. It's a critical moment. We cannot look away from and get bogged down in policy making that is really just status quo. And so we have an expert about that, Judge Najla Ayoubi, who is from Afghanistan. She's a lawyer, a former judge. She has extensive experience in judiciary, elections, human rights and women's rights. And she's a former legal advisor. She held incredible positions of power in Afghanistan. And if you think about someone who is a peacemaker, who understands just how critical the times are for all of us here today, and what we're going to do going forward. Najla, I wonder if you could tell us about your experience in Afghanistan. What are you seeing in Afghanistan and hearing from your colleagues there? It's a critical moment, as we know there, and with the lockdowns, we understand that there have been sweeping changes.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and thank you all for joining us at this, particularly at this critical time that we are all coming online and talking to each other. Thank you for solidarity. Actually, as you mentioned, that being a lawyer and a judge from Afghanistan, many people really ask me why I left the judiciary. This is one of the questions that I always receive, because this is a so powerful position, and in any country in the world, but particularly in Afghanistan, being a female and a judge. So first of all, being discriminated and forced out of judiciary because of being a woman, first of all. Second, it was a difficult time to face systematic discriminatory actions and decisions within the court. Even me, following the rules and laws, I have to discriminate because it was so systematic that even I was not able, my hands were tied. Third, it was one time I thought to, instead of helping some families or being a judge and sitting on the bench in the court, it is much better to go out and work tirelessly to change the policy and legislation, because those were, as my experience, those were the huge issues within the court that I was serving. That's why I'm so proud to share with you that I was part of the constitution making process of Afghanistan, and now we have 27% of women in the lower and upper house of the parliament in Afghanistan. Elimination of violence against women law was the first ever in the history of Afghanistan. The crime and violence against women become a crime. And a third was electoral law, because I was part of the electoral law development, that this was giving more opportunities for women to become a decision making. Coming to today's issues in Afghanistan, it is in a patriarchal society like Afghanistan, women and girls are daily facing domestic violence, death threats, rape, child marriage, forced marriage. You know, you name the crime, you name the violence that the women are not facing. Even I'm sure that you have heard about 2 weeks ago that the maternity hospital ward where the insurgent that they attack, and even the kids, the newborn babies, they were just died in the hospital, and most of them have been without the mothers already, even just coming into this world, become a what it's called orphans. So that's one of the issues. And in second is the culture of impunity is so high, not only in Afghanistan, but also because I'm involved in the region, in the Asia, the culture of impunity is so high and so problematic that it's a huge challenge that in which the perpetrators are going to unpunished. Instead, the women are becoming double and triple time victims of the violence. So these are the unfortunately one of the examples that I was facing, like the women were raped in my province, even when I was a judge. Now the culture is that they are marrying that girl to the rapist. Imagine they are becoming slaves within those families, because they think that this is only shame on women, because no one is asking for the rapist what they have done, because they are going unpunished, and that's why the culture of impunity goes up. Indeed, at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, the attack on the hospitals, on the women, women journalists, women activists, everyone, including me. I mean, I lost my brother and my father, both because of being outspoken, being vocal, being supportive for women's rights. These are, I mean, having those experiences, particularly as Eleanor mentioned, it's why I become and why I get involved in these issues, because when you are a victim, when you're systematically discriminated from your childhood, this is something that you become. For me, it become, I wanted to become, and I wanted to become the voice for voiceless women, because they don't have a voice, they don't have a platform, they don't have a circle of the people that they could support them. Particularly coming to this pandemic, I don't know if you know, in my culture, unfortunately, in many places, in majority of the places, men are like particularly coming to the access to services, like access to water, to food, to education, to health, everything coming on the top for men, not women. Even women are sitting behind and looking at the men who are sitting on the table and eating, and then whatever leftovers from them, they start eating. So this is, imagine within the pandemic of coronavirus, the access to the food and water and health, everything is just becoming like, it was abnormal anyways, but now it become more an issue. The current situation, particularly affecting women for their free movement, because the restrictions are already within, as Eleanor mentioned, pandemic within pandemic, but ours are restriction within the restrictions of movement for women. It's a huge issue. As well as the women are more exposed to violence, because they are economically and financially, or becoming socially even becoming dependent to the even the educated women, and they were earning before, now they're jobless and they are lacking employment. That's why they are becoming dependent to their male family members. So even the women, educated women and girls are now under the threat of violence every day, because they they have to be dependent to the men of their family. And majority, even again, the traditional, the women and girls are, having difficulties in the normal time, the access to resources, particularly becoming like one of the issues that now I noticed in the couple of weeks ago, that we had a hotline for women who were facing violence, so they could call and they could be referred to any help and services that they could take, and also getting some sort of counseling. But unfortunately, during the pandemic, it became a hotline for the pandemic cases. So this is, you can see that even everything is taken away from the woman. And at the same time, I think this is the time, in my opinion, that we all women, we have to start by having a international treaty. I think this is good to find the legal and policy gaps, particularly in the at the national, regional, and international level, to look in and focus on those particularly addressing violence against women. Raising awareness is one of our should be one of our priorities, for not only among policymakers but also among the people and the people who can influence policies. Meanwhile, the government, we have to make the government step up and make a commitment to end violence against women. By international treaties, we have to make this happen. And we have to make these head of states or any policymaker in the globe accountable for ending violence against women. And at the end, I think it's also important for me to mention that we have to join hands with leading frontline activists, because every day, like last time, midnight, I was talking to my friends who were getting COVID-19 with the entire family. They were exposed to, and they are sick, but they don't have any access to any doctors and any facilities. So we have to join our hand and and support these frontline activists. Particularly, one of the example is the Red Shoes campaign. And thank you for everyone to do this. And this is showing our solidarity, because one thing that I would like to mention at the end, that as a human, we all women deserve dignity and also live our life without the violence or free of violence. And I think it's important that we have to make our destiny decision about our destiny, not let anybody to take our destiny from us or our lives from us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Najla. It really does resonate. This, I see we have a question from one of the folks in our chat, and she says, "We know the pandemic has increased the violence against women. Is your country the same?" Yes. The answer is yes. Universally, this is why we do the work. Like, we know that if until the laws are changed, until culture is changed, where women's lives are valued as not just equal, but with equity, where the barriers to equality are removed. It's not just, if you've got a big fence and men are looking over the fence, hanging out, enjoying a football game, and women are, standing behind the fence, but we're shorter, we can't see over it, the fence is taller. Unless and until we can see over the fence, like, we're just not going to be equal. So it's so important to remove the barriers where we're all standing on the same field. And thank you so much for your work in Afghanistan. I've met a lot of brave women and men in frontline work, but I think everyone understands just how critical the service to fixing the laws and transforming the Constitution in your country must have been. And so thank you so much, Najla. We just deeply appreciate it. And I just want to remind everyone, we're going to have some question and answer time here shortly for everybody to interact with our panelists. And we really appreciate you dropping your questions into the chat. It's just, this conversation is so critical. I want to take a moment to talk about Elina Chauvet. We're hoping she'll be able to join us today. If you follow Elina on Instagram, you've seen her posting about our campaign. She's been extremely supportive of the Red Shoe campaign and this virtual march. If you don't know about Elina's story and why she inspires us so much, she, in 2009, she was just an architect. You know, she was a woman living her life out there doing, you know, work every day, but her sister was murdered by her partner. And it caused her to take up a way to grieve. And I think this is something, we talked about this at the beginning today, taking a moment to grieve and turning it into power, turning it into purpose, turning it into a desire for systems and cultural change. And finding alliances is critical. And what Elina did is she painted red shoes, and she took them and put them in and did a beautiful installation in front of the local government buildings where she lives in Mexico. And the media covered it, and she talked about missing and murdered women, missing and murdered girls, women and girls suffering from domestic and interpersonal and all forms of sexualized violence. Women around the world were like, I'm doing that. Yup. And so she has traveled the world. Many hundreds of cities around the world have done these red shoes installations. And like today, we know that we can't leave our homes, and so many women and girls are forced to shelter with their abusers. And so we wanted to take a moment of solidarity with Elina, and I'm just going to share my screen so that you can all see this this beautiful video from Elina. I'm going to play. The internet seems to be a little unstable, so I will share it later in our call. But we're going to share this gorgeous video of Elina's installation. It's important to me when we think about the red shoes. I just want to thank the dozens and dozens and dozens of members of the Every Woman Coalition and our friends and our communities and our networks who have shared these incredible, powerful photos. Women who are differently abled, men who are differently abled, men from all over the world. These beautiful pictures. We also understand that red has a cultural context for many people, and so other folks who don't have red shoes have shared these beautiful flowers and red snowflakes and pomegranates. And so the creativity and the inspiration to honor this work that grew from loss that many of us know about is really important to me. And I know to everyone here at Every Woman Treaty, we're just very grateful to everyone in our coalition. I want to introduce someone who I am deeply fortunate to work with every single day. Many of you work with her all the time. She is a founding working group member. She's been with Every Woman Treaty since 2014. Zeyneb Ali Khan is from Pakistan. She's a gender specialist. She's been working for more than a decade on development and in corporate sectors in Pakistan. She has pursued her education in a place where if you know Malala's story, you know that women and girls getting education is a challenge. And she took it on and demanded that she be able to pursue her career. And we are so honored to have her with us. She has done work in Pakistan. She was a documentation specialist for USAID. She worked in gender equity. She is just, and she is a sister survivor. And I just want to take a moment to just say how personally grateful I am to have Zeynab Ali Khan with us today. Zeynab, we are very honored and excited to have you with us as well. Please go ahead.
Great, thank you so much, Elizabeth. As Elizabeth said, first of all, let me thank everyone for being here. Thank you for taking out time. This is, it's a very critical time for women all around the world, and I'm really glad that we could get together today and discuss the escalation of violence against women and girls during the lockdown. I'm a survivor of sexual assault and domestic violence. I was sexually assaulted at the age of 8 and have suffered domestic violence at the hands of my family on numerous occasions. I'm a very proud feminist who refuses to leave her country, even though I've found myself in often dangerous situations due to the work that I do on women's rights. During my time in the development sector, I've been hacked, I've been tracked, I've been stalked, and my life has been threatened on many occasions because of my work. I have over 13 years of work experience working for the corporate and development sectors in Pakistan. And I'm a proud alumnus of the University of Toronto, where I got my master's degree in women and gender studies. Now, given the fact that I grew up in a country that has a highly misogynistic culture, I've had to fight for everything that I've wanted in life. It would be safe to say that my fight for survival actually began in my mother's womb. As when she got pregnant with me, relatives, and especially my father, advised her to get an abortion because they already had 2 kids and a third one was, well, a crowd. Since my birth, I've had to fight for my right to a proper education. I've had to fight for my right to leave a husband who was physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive. And I've also had to fight for my right to live a free life with, you know, sort of a life that is not, that is my own, you know, and that is not dependent on what people expect of me. Belonging to a conservative family just 2 decades ago in my family, it was unheard of for a girl to be sent abroad to study. It took me 2 years just to convince my parents to allow me to apply to college. And, you know, I fought very hard for it. And I'm proud to say that throughout my life, for my bachelor's and my master's, I have studied on full scholarships because my family was just not prepared to invest in my education because I'm a girl and why would I need education? My only duty in life is really to get married and reproduce children. I started working at the Every Woman Treaty back in 2014. For Every Woman Treaty for 5 years on a voluntary basis. And last year, I joined as a full-time staff member. Now let's talk about the COVID-19 lockdown in Pakistan, which has further exposed the misogyny of Pakistani society. I'd like to quote a cleric by the name of Maulana Tariq Jamil. He's a very popular cleric in Pakistan who actually had the audacity to blame the spread of the COVID-19 virus on women. And I quote, "Who has demolished modesty in my country? Who is making the nation's daughters dance? Who is shortening their dresses? Who should be held responsible?" Ironically enough, it is the same cleric who held a huge gathering of 100,000 people after COVID-19 was discovered in Pakistan, which led to the transmission of the COVID-19 virus amongst thousands of people. During the lockdown in Pakistan, maternity wards in 2 major cities of the country were closed down Islamabad, which is the capital city of Pakistan, and Peshawar, because nurses and doctors contracted the COVID-19 virus because they were not issued proper PPE suits, masks, and gloves to protect themselves. And instead of the government stepping in and making amends to that situation, they closed down the maternity wards. And where women were supposed to give birth, really not the government's problem. I want to also highlight the fact that no real efforts are being made by the Pakistani government at the moment to record the escalation of violence against women during this lockdown. In Pakistan, most social welfare helplines at the provincial level have been shut down during COVID-19. As an example, the Ministry of Human Rights has a helpline number, 1099, which receives normally 40,000 calls in a month. Over the course of the lockdown, they've received only 13. Now, why do you think that is? Because a man who is at home terrorizing his wife and beating her and calling her is going to be very smart about it. One of the first things he's going to do is confiscate the cell phone that she can use to make the call for help. Now the Ministry of Human Rights is working on a secret code and a prompting system that victims of abuse can use in times of emergency. My question to them is, why was not such a mechanism in place before the COVID-19 lockdown? Because it's very obvious that we needed it. Because violence against women is not something that suddenly started happening during the lockdown. It's been there all along in Pakistan and other countries. There has been, according to certain reports, there has been a 200% increase in violence against women during the lockdown. The entire burden of sheltering these women and protecting them has fallen on the NGO sector in Pakistan, because the government has failed the women citizens of this country. And shelters are running at full capacity. They can no longer take more people, women or girls. And also because they fear that what if the new person that they're going to shelter is going to be a carrier of the COVID-19 virus. I want to quote Nabila Firoz. She's a human rights activist, and she paints a very realistic picture of what the lockdown is like for women in Pakistan right now. Imagine living in fear of the person who shares your home. Every day is a walking nightmare of criticism, name calling, disliking your food, disapproving of your household chores, controlling what you eat, controlling what you wear, and physical violence on top of that. Now imagine that you've been trapped inside with that person while the world grapples with an ongoing health crisis of COVID-19. I myself, during, end quote, I myself during this lockdown have dealt with 2 cases of domestic violence. One was of a woman who was beaten up by her husband, and her children were kidnapped and taken to another city. The second case is of a woman who was beaten up within her own home by men who barged in, got physical with her, tore her clothes, and she was unable to file a report. Speaking of police brutality, Elizabeth,
Yeah.
she was unable to file a report with the police because the perpetrators had contacts within the police. I think that if there was ever a doubt in anybody's mind before this lockdown that violence against women is perhaps not an issue, there should be none after the escalation that we have seen. A 200% escalation is astonishing. It's astonishing. There should be no doubt that a global treaty on violence against women is an absolute necessity. There should be no doubt in anybody's mind that the current mechanisms that exist, whether on a regional level or an international level, have miserably failed women and girls around the world. We need a standalone global treaty on violence against women that will introduce legal reform, that will train and hold accountable lawyers, judges, doctors, nurses, police officers. We need a global treaty that will raise awareness on violence against women and girls. We need a global treaty that will introduce survivor support systems that would have come really in handy during the lockdown of COVID-19. And we also need the treaty for the much needed funding that is required to do all this work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zeynep. It's just, this moment in time is so critical. The, you know, and as we were talking at the top of the hour, the idea that police brutality exists in one place and not another is just farce. If you're a woman, you know exactly what police brutality looks like. You know what it's like when the police fail you and they commit violence, or they allow your partner to commit violence against you, or there's state-sponsored violence, or the state looks away if you're subject to non-state torture. So it's really, really important to have these discussions. And I am just deeply moved, and thank you so much for sharing the perspective from Pakistan. It's just the disappointment in our governments is real, and we know that the moment has arrived. We can't just accept reparations when they're never paid. This is not a debt that can be repaid. It is a debt that should be repaid, but it has to come with global systems change, because that's the real reparation, is ensuring that there's just not another generation of survivors of sexualized or interpersonal or domestic violence anywhere in the world. We just can't have another generation of women who are having these same discussions that us and all of our ancestors have had for so long. I want to take just a moment to share a couple of quick videos before we come to our CEO, Lisa Shannon, who I'm very excited to introduce, and our partner, Marina Pisklakova-Parker from Russia. We'll get to them in just a moment, but I want to share just a couple of videos that show you a little bit about what we have seen from you guys. These are just a few little clips. We are going to have a heck of a long video that shares all of these photos in the next couple of days, but I just want everybody to see a little bit about what's happening out there in the universe. So let me just share. And I'm going to share a couple of others just because it's so, it's just so moving to see people from all over.
Elizabeth, we actually can't see it. Is there a way that you can select the screen with the video?
And, all right, and I'll share some more here in just a few. I want to introduce everybody to our CEO and co-founder, one of many, here at Every Woman Treaty, where over 100 activists doing frontline work around the world have come together to make this movement and this moment possible. Lisa is, she is a women's activist. She is a scholar. She's worked in women's rights since 1991. She's done incredible work. Many of you know her from her book, 1,000 Sisters, or Mama Coco and 100 Gunmen. You know her from her, her experience with Oprah, and she and I both share a profound love and connection with the people of Congo. And I just very quickly want to give a quick shout out to an incredible woman named Elina Chauvet, who's joined us. She is in Belgium. She is a sister like no other, and she is one of those folks who you just want in your corner. And she is a dear, lifelong friend of Dr. Denis Mukwege. So there's a whole lot of Congo love on this call, and for all of our sisters around the world. I cannot tell you how important Lisa Shannon's leadership has been to me. We've known each other for well over a decade, and she is the kind of person who is just not going to let this issue go. She's going to make sure that we do whatever we can to get this treaty. She's not going to let us waste our time. She's going to make sure that every moment of every day for everybody in our coalition is spent doggedly pursuing the way forward for women and girls around the world. If there's one person who could dig their fingers in underneath the palais in Geneva and flip it over and say, it's time to make a change, guys. It's time to make a change. It's our CEO, Lisa Shannon, and she's just gonna light this world on fire every day for women and girls around the world. Normally, I would give a much more detailed accounting, but really, it's just important to say how much you inspire me, Lisa. Thank you so much, and please tell us where we are. Oh, and you're on mute.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and what an honor to be here today, particularly at this moment when we have the intersecting pandemics of violence against women, COVID, and racism all at one time. To come together and stand for an end to violence against women right now is just a very powerful moment for us. I'm very honored to be here with Elina Chauvet and to have had our community just throw all of our weight behind the remarkable installations that she sparked in 2009 and has grown into a global movement. So it's an honor to be here, and also with activists like Najla and Marina, who are literally putting their lives on the line, Zeyneb, Eleanor, putting their lives on the line every day for this work. It's an extraordinary honor to be counted in this group. Today, I'm from the United States. I was born in the United States and raised here. And today I want to talk a little bit about the system of silence that all of us live in around these issues. And I'm going to start by just sharing one story. My work began with women in the Congo, as well as Somalia, women survivors of war. And at this moment in the United States, when we're reflecting so much on police brutality, I think about how that connects to the women and the experiences that so many survivors have had around the world of police brutality. When I went to Somalia the first time, I met a wonderful woman by the name of Uba, who had been home in her tent one night when with her 2-year-old son, and she was 5 months pregnant at the time when 4 government soldiers broke into her tent and gang raped her, stabbed her in the leg. She was screaming. It was a thin tent. It was in the middle of a famine, so there were other people nearby in an urban sort of tent setting. So everyone knew what had happened. And in the morning, the camp leader came to her and asked her to please go report this to the police. And she did not want to go, but he said he would go with her. So they went to the police. And at the station, they were both arrested for false accusations against the government because she reported that government soldiers had raped her. She literally was sitting there with her leg bleeding. And as I mentioned, she was 5 months pregnant and she began to have a miscarriage. While in the police station, the blood was spilling onto the floor. And the police told her that she was lying and they would keep her there, except she's making too much of a mess. So get out, but before you get out, we want you to clean the mess up off the floor. She couldn't even lower herself to the floor, and she found herself leaning back, wiping her own miscarriage up off the floor with a rag and bleach that they had passed on to her. This is the experience that women have around the world every single day when they speak out or attempt to report the type of violence that they are living through. This is brutality, this is torture. I think one of the things that was very confronting for me, I heard stories like this in Congo and Somalia, went on to Iraq. But as I spoke about some of these issues in the United States, I visited rural Alaska and talked to a health nurse there who told me probably 99% of the young women and women, just females in Alaskan villages that she served were survivors of violence. And as I was speaking with someone who was doing work on trafficking in the Pacific Northwest, they described to me the textbook process of grooming someone for trafficking. And as they described that story, I was 35 years old, and it was just then, years being a feminist, working in women's shelters, it was the first time that I realized they were describing exactly what I had seen happen to my sister when I was 11 and she was 13. And that was the moment for me, when I was 11, that I realized it's not safe to be a girl. And I changed everything at that time. Before that, I, liked cute clothes and was playing with makeup and modeling and all of that. And I realized it wasn't safe, and I stopped all of that. And that was the beginning of my feminism. And as I heard that story about trafficking and recognized what had happened for me, it was then that I realized so much of my work had been framed as going to the worst places on earth to be a woman, that I realized the worst place on earth to be a woman is everywhere. In every corner of the planet, we are grappling with this reality. 1 out of 3 women globally will survive violence against women. And what I heard when I talked with women in Congo or Somalia or in the United States, survivors anywhere, everyone would say, thank you for the services to help me heal, if they're available, but please do what you can to end the violence. And so that really drove my inquiry into what is the world doing to end this violence, because there isn't a survivor who would have rather not been attacked in the first place. And I think what I recognized as I went back to graduate school, studied international law and human rights, is that the world is simply not serious about ending this pandemic. The actions the international community has taken are not serious. And I say that, illustrated by a couple of points. One, there was a study that was published just last summer that indicated in 2017, all multilaterals and donor governments donated a total of about $400 million to end violence against women. That's about 11 cents per female on Earth. when the cost to the global economy is closer to $1,200 per female on Earth. This is not serious money. We have had a patchwork response to violence against women and trying to end violence against women. So there are some regional treaties. There's, many experts would point to CEDAW, which does not even contain the word violence. It intentionally omitted reference to violence against women at the time it was drafted because it was considered a personal matter at the time. And I want to be really clear, at least in the United States, as we're reflecting on those intersecting pandemics, including racism, very much including racism. I have been, over the last year, as I have sat with diplomats from more than 35 countries, I have been stunned at the racism underpinning the way we approach violence against women globally. I was told by more diplomats than you can imagine from Europe, European diplomats, that what we have right now is just fine, that we need to just implement it better. When you look at the CEDAW committee and the cases it's reviewed, 14 of the 18 cases the CEDAW committee has ever reviewed on violence against women were European cases. That means only 4 cases in the history of the CEDAW committee regarded women who live in non-white majority nations. That is racism. That is racism. And so we need to look very hard at why European nations are very quick to say, we have the Istanbul Convention. Why would we need anything else? Everything's going okay. The CEDAW committee is hearing cases on violence against women in Denmark. Isn't that good enough? Well, it's not, when 45% of women living in sub-Saharan Africa are living through domestic violence situations. And so that's something that we have to grapple with. The risks involved in addressing violence against women have been almost universally assumed by frontline activists around the world. And governments have been content to let them do that, and they need legal backup. They need legal backup, they need financial backup, they need services, they need government backup. And that's what we're calling for, because the truth is violence against women is a pandemic that's very addressable. We have evidence of what works. So, we know that if you change the law as a first step, cleaning up the legal code is a great first step, but training for judges, police, doctors, nurses, services, and prevention education, these 4 things in combination have resulted in a dramatic reduction in rates of violence. But these things only get done if people fund it. And I know for so many of the extraordinary women on this call today and activists around the world who are doing incredible work, it's really hard to run a women's rights nonprofit in your nation if your total budget for the year is only $12,000, right? People need support. And so, it's time to really call for those interventions. And I want to say today, as we're dealing with these intersecting pandemics, it's very clear that the United Nations has estimated there will be at least 31 million additional cases of violence against women that come out of this pandemic. And that manifests in many different ways, from women in Pakistan and Afghanistan no longer able to call the local hotline, to the horrific rape and murder of the young woman that Eleanor referred to, or young women in Guatemala stuck at home with fathers or uncles who are assaulting them daily. But I'm troubled when UN Women refers to this as a shadow pandemic. Because just like when COVID initially hit, one of the things that struck me the most, to be honest, was just like all these nations pointing fingers at each other and saying, you should have known. Let's not pretend you didn't know. You should have known this was coming. Here's how you should have prepared. This is what you should have done. And everybody's pointing fingers at each other. I want to be really clear. Every nation on earth is familiar with the pandemic that is violence against women. They have been well briefed. This is not news. And moving forward, it's really important to know that while the violence has spiked in this pandemic, that it spikes in war, it spikes in natural disasters like famines, when populations have to move, it will spike again as climate change comes down upon us. So it's a guarantee that violence against women is going to spike whenever there is a global crisis. And so for that reason, we want pandemic response today, and we want response and global systems change to end the system of silence that has beaten down every activist that stands up. That's what we want. And so we're coming together today because women are terrorized, women are being tortured, they are being tortured by non-state actors, and they are being tortured by state actors. And we would like to see an end to all of that. And so I just really want to express my heartfelt thanks for everyone coming together today. I want you to know that as we post these red shoes, we're calling for systems change. We want you to continue to put the word out and gather as many photos of red shoes as you can, because we're going to be printing those and sending them to every diplomat in Geneva, asking them for permanent global systems change to end violence against women. So any photo we receive will be included in a book that we will print and deliver to every ambassador in Geneva. So I really thank all of you for coming here together today. It's incredibly inspiring watching this movement grow. It's an honor to be here with everyone, and I'll turn it back over to Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm just, it's like they knew. Yeah.
They knew.
They knew. The governments knew, everybody knew. And so I think it's important for us to remind ourselves to not be gaslighted by people in power who tell us we're crazy, or that we're difficult to deal with, or that, you know, there's just so many other things happening, honey. No, this has been happening for centuries. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of blood, time, and treasure, and it's time for this to change. I am mindful of the time, and as I often say, the reason for the season is here. I would like to introduce everyone to the woman behind the Red Shoes installation. Elina Chauvet, who I mentioned earlier today, is the inspiring woman who has built a beautiful, transformative, and hopeful installation all over the world. And I would just like to make sure, let me make sure that we've got that she's off of mute. Ah, I see her there. Elina Chauvet, we are so honored to have you with us. If you could just take a moment and say hello. We have dozens of women here who are deeply grateful for your leadership, and we give you our love and our love to your sister and her memory. Elina.
Muchas gracias. Estoy pues muy conmovida por esta invitación y por esta iniciativa de New Woman, donde nos hermana, y mi proyecto, discúlpenme, mi discurso está en las calles, está en las ciudades, está en fotografías en muchas partes. No soy muy buena dando discursos porque me lleno de emociones, ¿sí? Y las ideas se escapan. Estoy muy emocionada. Lamento estar escuchando, entiendo inglés, no lo hablo muy poco, pero escuchar y saber tantos testimonios de tantas mujeres, de tanto sufrimiento a través de tantos años, la manera en que nos siguen invisibilizando, que siguen los gobiernos y el patriarcado ignorando todo este sufrimiento y todo el daño que lleva, que es como una tormenta gigantesca que nos destroza a todos, pues es muy doloroso, ¿no? Hace 10 años que empecé con este proyecto pensando en el sufrimiento de tantas mujeres en Ciudad Juárez, de tantas familias. Y bueno, fue una reflexión, fue llevar este tema que en México era imposible hablarlo públicamente por la vergüenza que representaba para muchas mujeres y que sigue representando. Y romper ese tabú ha sido muy duro, muy difícil. Sin embargo, ha sido un logro muy grande el que tantas mujeres ahora salgan a las calles, no solo en México, sino en todo el mundo, durante estos 10 años. La verdad es que ha sido maravilloso ver cómo ha evolucionado, cómo las mujeres hemos madurado y nos hemos llenado de valor y de fuerza para salir a las calles. Verlas ahora todas ustedes aquí, en esta hermandad, el trabajo que está haciendo Every Woman, esta coalición maravillosa que cuando tuve noticia de ella, cuando me pareció una luz, ¿sí? Una luz que necesitamos todas las mujeres y las sociedades del mundo, porque claramente vemos que está colapsando muchos sistemas, ¿no? Estoy muy agradecida y bueno, les mando un abrazo y un saludo muy grande. Y bueno, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Elina, por tomarse el tiempo de estar este día con nosotros. Mi nombre es Regina. Como ya habíamos hablado antes, ya nos habíamos conocido por email. Estamos sumamente agradecidas de su presencia este día y en nombre de Every Woman, pues no tenemos más que decirle que gracias por compartir su experiencia, todo su conocimiento. Estamos muy agradecidos por su esfuerzo en este movimiento, por todo lo que usted ha logrado y creado durante todo este tiempo. Y le agradecemos muchísimo nuevamente. En este momento voy a traducir a todos los panelistas y al resto de la audiencia lo que usted nos ha compartido este día para que la mayoría puedan entenderlo. Hello everyone, my name is Regina and I'm with Every Woman. I've been with Every Woman for a year now, and I'm going to help translating what Elina just told us. She's been with this movement for over 10 years, and she's really grateful with Every Woman for inviting her to this session today, to this meeting, and to share some words with all of us. She started this movement because of her sister 10 years ago. When she started this in Mexico, she never thought how potential or how big her influence to this was going to be in order to try to improve things and try to inspire women in her country to start raising their voices to avoid being abused, to avoid being violated, and to help them to raise their voices to start something big like she's doing right now. She said that she's really grateful for being here today, and that when she heard about the coalition from Every Woman Treaty, when she heard from us for the first time, she realized how big her movement is, and she felt so grateful, and she felt like really happy to know that so many other people know about her movement and know about the Red Shoes campaign, and that she's really happy to be here with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Regina, and muchas gracias, Elina. Thank you. I am so grateful to you for being here, and there are so many missing and murdered women and women who are in peril, and we need moments to see those women. And what better way than something that so many of us have in our closet, that all of us need to have a pair of red shoes, to have this beautiful symbol of who we are that embodies our femininity and the power that comes with that. So we just are so grateful for your vision, Elina, and we are hopeful to do this with you every year forever until every woman is free, and eventually it'll just be a parade of beauty and goodness and change in a system that has been changed. I am just deeply, deeply grateful to you from everyone here. And now I would like to introduce Marina Pisklakova-Parker from Russia, who is the founder of the Center for Prevention of Violence, or ANA, which is an NGO that coordinates 150 organizations in Russia. She has transformed the landscape. She founded the first hotline. She is somebody who is a defender, who's identified as one of the most significant human rights defenders by Human Rights Watch. She is a person who really doesn't need any introduction because her story is so incredibly powerful. She's authored Between Scream and Silence, State of Fatherhood in Russia. She has fought the Russian government and has been labeled an enemy of the state in Russia. And she is a fearless frontline leader who has demanded and transformed the landscape for women and girls in Russia. And her bravery, like so many women on this call, is just really remarkable. Marina, can you brief us on the situation? I know that there have been grave impacts in Russia from the coronavirus pandemic, that you've seen many, many changes there, and none of them good for women. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. You know, listening to everybody today, I realized that we can just tell stories without naming countries, and they will be all the same. It's global, it's pandemic, and it's really a responsibility of the global community that women and girls still feel so unsafe and suffer so much. In Russia, this year will be 30 years since I started working with violence against women in Russia. I did start the first helpline for battered women. And one of my first cases was a woman who came to see me, and she said, "I'm afraid my husband will kill me and nobody will know, because he will tell everyone that I escaped with another man." Back then, we had no system of response. I had to call the police, and the police officer who promised me to protect this woman called back to her husband and said, "If you beat your wife, beat her quietly, because I don't want NGOs to call me." That's police brutality, police ignorance, and basically, we still have the same today. 30 years later, Russia doesn't have a law on domestic violence. Pandemic, of course, is bringing it to the surface like never before. Just today, I received statistics of our national helpline, and we've had an increase from February through May of 74% increase in calls from women in Russia. Because we don't have a law, nothing really works. The system doesn't work. State police just about 10 days ago reported in the media that they've seen a decrease in domestic violence because families come closer together, spending time together, and it's actually good for families to be together during pandemic. Well, we see a different picture. And I can understand why the police actually doesn't see the increase in statistics, because currently our law functions only if there are severe injuries or murder. All before that is a private prosecution, and it's punishable by fine, a fine of $70 to $300. The court system is very difficult for women to get through. So when it's private prosecution, women have to call the police and then go in front of a judge and prove the case to a judge. And then it will result in a fine. So you can see everybody who works with violence, with domestic violence, violence against women, knows that it will make it only more dangerous, and the situation will get worse. Why every woman treaty? Because this is the only hope for us in Russia to have legislation that will protect women. I can tell you that for the past 15 years, we've been filing shadow reports to the CEDAW committee. We wrote to the special rapporteurs. We held hearings with special rapporteurs in Russia. We've done a lot of international work to attract attention to the situation with violence against women in Russia, and nothing works. So far, nothing worked. And I think, I know that only a global commitment on violence against women can change the situation. What do we have today? Again, state shelters. We do have some state shelters, but they're closed for pandemic, or they have a very difficult threshold that women cannot overcome to get to a shelter. They have to have full medical package on their health, including the test that they do not carry coronavirus. How can they get it? If you are not sick, you cannot just go and get a medical test. But much more difficult thing is they have to have income statement, a household income statement showing that they are a low-income family. But that includes income statement from a perpetrator's job. So can you imagine a woman coming to her husband and saying, "Hey, honey, I need your financial statement to get to a shelter"? So this is how difficult the situation for women in Russia is. What we are doing now, we are working with private businesses, with hotels. We are renting apartments. Only within March and April, we had in Moscow more than 400 women that asked for help. Unfortunately, only 10% of them finally leave perpetrators and get to a safe, another safe place that we are helping them to get. Of course, like everybody said, our society is extremely patriarchal. There is a lot of misogyny and deep discrimination against women. And of course, that results in violence against women. But you know, I've been doing this work for 30 years. What I see is that we keep responding. We will respond forever. until we have something like global commitment to stop violence against women and girls. And I see that global commitment only in the global treaty, because it's not okay. What is happening now is not okay. Even in those countries where there is good legislation, systems don't work. Restraining orders don't work because it's impossible to evict perpetrators. Funding is not available because responding to COVID-19 is the priority at the moment. So again, shelters and services for women are underfunded. And it is again totally, in Russia, it is on the shoulders of NGOs, totally on the shoulders of NGOs at the moment to help women to survive through this. But you know what? It's not going to be easier after isolation will be, lockdown will be over, because we all know the cycle of violence is getting tighter and more dangerous. And we will see aftershocks of that for a long time. We will see more and more violence and we will hear stories that women cannot tell now because they are under control of perpetrators. They're locked down at home. And we noticed, for example, cases where women escape without phones because perpetrators took their phones. I will be repeating all the stories that you already heard. And we all know these stories. I think we need to join our forces to push for a very real global change. And I see this real global change. And I will believe the global commitment to stop violence against women and girls when we have a global treaty that will specifically target violence against women and girls, that will tell the world it's not okay. And we are strongly opposing, and we are committed to eliminate violence against women. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marina. It's true, like this is the recurring theme today. They know. The governments know, men know, they know. They know that this is happening to their wives and daughters and friends and girlfriends and coworkers. They know that this is happening. They also know the budgets. And it goes to what Lisa was saying earlier. If we're only going to dedicate 11 cents to women, if that's all we're worth is a little more than a dime, when the cost is $1,200, you know, we know that this has to change. This isn't a sustainable system. So I want to thank all of our panelists. We're going to get to our Q&A, and I'm just going to take a personal point of privilege as your moderator. I am so moved by the work, and having spent so much time with frontline activists in my own career from Morocco and the Sudans, from the Democratic Republic of Congo, from Argentina and many other places. These stories are so universal, but the commonness of this should never belie how personal it is to the people who are surviving. How the impact on each individual woman, the impact on her friends and sisters and her mother and her family members and coworkers. The beauty of this work and this sisterhood and this moment of solidarity is entirely based on the fact that we know that the world can change. And we know that we can be agents of that change. We know that with each and every one of you on this call, going to your governments, going to your friends and coworkers and families and your leaders, we know that those changes can be made. We know that the laws can change. We know that we can develop the political will. And as a survivor myself, and many of you know my story. For those of you who don't, I'll be brief. I am a survivor of gang rape, and I was held against my will for 6 days. And the drumbeat of my life has been, yes, but I'm a white woman from the United States who came from an intact family. So my story always had that chance to be better, to find love, to have a great career, to be safe, be secure. And I've done that, and I am grateful. I'm also mindful that if you don't have my details, that is very frequently not how your story ends. And yet, I think many times, how strong would I have been if that had not happened to me? You know, everyone says survivors, oh, you're so strong. Well, yes, I am strong and resilient. Most survivors are, but that's beside the point. The point is that no woman or girl should ever live their life in fear, and every woman and girl should live free from violence of any kind. So when I look at where we began today, that police brutality and state-sponsored violence, you know, is the excessive force that is used to put down peaceful protests and peaceful people. The disproportionate policing in Black and brown neighborhoods and predominantly white countries is abhorrent. But the second most egregious misconduct is sexualized violence against women and girls. We know that there's a disproportionate number of women and girls who are in homes with police officers who are brutalized by their partners, brutalized by their fathers, brutalized by brothers. We need this to not just be about women. We need men to transfer the shame and stigma off of women and girls and transfer it to the perpetrators where it belongs. Be they state actors, be they individual actors, it doesn't matter. The transfer of shame and stigma has to belong with people who are committing the atrocities against women and girls all around the world. We have many incredible people who are here today. I want to thank everybody. Eleanor and Najla, Elina, oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. Zainab, Lisa, our CEO, and my dear friend Marina, thank you all so much. I want to just turn quickly to our chat. We have a lot of really good questions, and I just want to make sure that we're taking some time to share them. If you have questions, now is a really great moment to drop your questions in the Q&A or in the chat box, and we will certainly be sure to get to as many of these questions as we possibly can. We are, and yes, I'm just going to also point of order. I agree, Eleanor. I'm scrolling through the chat and I see that Lisa's mother, Shannon, is here. Now, if you want to talk about Woman on Fire for women's rights, I need you to know that Shannon is that woman. She is amazing, and I couldn't agree more. Eleanor noted, huge welcome, Anne. Thanks for raising an Amazon. Yep, thank you. Changed my life. Happy to have it. Happy to have her here. So we are, for those of you, we have a few people who are asking how to donate. You can go to everywoman.org/donate. We are always in, you know, any small organization that is doing this kind of work, as we noted, we're worth 11 cents a piece. So I guess we're about $1. We're worth about $1 so far. So we want to change that and make sure that we can create this change on the front line. I just want to take a moment to recognize one of these questions, and it's really open to any of our folks. And I would love to hear from Marina and Eleanor in particular for this question. What strategies can be used to get men on board as advocates? You know, this is a cultural question, but it is also just a practical question. You know, we can't all have allies every moment of every day, like Dr. Denny Mukwege, who is always talking about how men need to stand side by side. But what are strategies that that you have seen work or think that we need to do more of? Marina, if you'd like to go first, and then Eleanor, we'll go to you.
Thank you. Yes, it's a very important question. We do work with men, and we have a lot of men allies. In fact, the first men professionally who joined us were lawyers. They started representing women for free. And we do training for lawyers, because in system in Russia, women cannot go anywhere defending their rights if they do not have a lawyer that would represent them. But more, we started talking about masculinity norms. We started talking about, we have a campaign and we are preparing a new phase of this campaign, basically redefining gender norms and masculinity norms, where we show that men can care equally to women. It's not women's job to do everything at home. And we started doing that through fatherhood, responsible fatherhood, actually involved fatherhood programs. And now we are expanding it to equal household work division. And this is all campaigning, seminars, public awareness campaigns, debates, but also talking to different professional groups, men in different professional groups, first lawyers. Now, I think the new generation of girls and boys, they are different in Russia, and I'm very happy to see that. I recently was doing a lecture at the High School of Economics on masculinity norms and violence, men's violence against women. And I can tell you that the response from young men was very good, with good questions, where they were asking, how can I stop my friends if I see that they do it? So they want to speak about that. And I think this is time when we need to speak with young men and just name it. Another strategy we started taking is we name it. For example, in our previous campaigns, we talked about violence against women. We are saying, for example, 14,000 women were abused by their partners in Russia. Now we say 14,000 men abused their wives. And this is different. We name who is responsible. So I think there is a strategy of working with different professional groups, public awareness, and just naming the problem.
Thank you, Marina. Eleanor?
Yes, indeed. You can almost, like Marina had earlier said regarding issues of violence, you can almost superimpose what Marina has said anywhere in the world. But you know, a lot of times we talk about naming and shaming.
Oh, we lost you, Eleanor.
It's because I was on mute. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
It's very much because I was on mute. I said, you know, you can almost superimpose what Marina has said already regarding, you know, what we can do anywhere in the world. But let me talk about Nigeria. In the same way that we talk about naming and shaming, how about spinning that and turning it on its head and talking about naming and applauding? Who are those men who have, against all odds, stood up against the grain of society, against tradition and culture, and have spoken up? And we just need that sustained intervention. I'll give an example. We had, 25 years ago when I started this work on widows, there was a traditional leader who harmful practices were practiced in his community, and he was an exerciser of, he was a female genital exerciser himself. So he used to cut women. And one journalist came into that community. And I was taking the journalist to show how awful the practices were. And that one journalist asked this traditional leader, who went by His Royal Highness, said, His Royal Highness, will you really sit back and see that women are dying because you are using a rusty blade to cut their vulvae? And he was stunned. Fast forward a few years later, he was the very one that stood up, made a proclamation that female genital mutilation should stop in his community. He laid down his rusty blade, sent out scouts to inform him anywhere that was practiced. With women who lost their husbands had to blow on a fire and keep it aflame for 8 days to prove they didn't kill their wives. He stopped that. And the Commonwealth Secretariat heard about this traditional leader and used him as an example amongst his peers. We need to ensure that there are positive masculinities. I believe strongly that if we can say that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, the same women who are rocking the cradle for the men who are ruling the world can rock the cradle for women to rule the world, and for those men to show respect to every woman and girl on earth. Let's change the narrative, exactly as Marina eloquently said. And let's go, what we have done in Nigeria is to go straight into the institutions that were seen as the exclusive preserve of men, and to work with those institutions. So you have most of the religious institutions, not all, are dominated by men. Most of the traditional institutions dominated by men. So we have decided, let's have allies amongst the men. And just 2 days ago, when we had a high-level meeting with the Minister of Women's Affairs in Nigeria, she used her voice to speak to the head of state, who had to come out and condemn the awful rise in sexual violence in Nigeria. And we have our National Assembly speaking up, the police speaking up. So we must keep chipping away at the block until we see that hole that brings in the sunlight. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Eleanor. And I'm going to loop Najla into this for a quick answer. We have some other questions I definitely want to get to. Nicolene noted the he for she ambassadors. That's such a great campaign, and it goes to this point of naming and applauding when men step into human rights work and women's rights work, and they become our allies. It's just such a critical thing. Najla, you have a comment on this too. Go ahead.
Actually, thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's very interesting to look at the strategies. The strategy that we used back in Afghanistan when I was working, we developed the violence, booklets from the religious perspective, and then we trained and distributed among the religious community, because they are the influential people on the, mainly because of coming 100%, almost 100% Islamic countries, because this is not only the religion, but also culture, and they are the influential people. It is important that what we did, we tried to this was a kind of counter argument with the same weapon that they were using in abusing women's rights in Afghanistan, particularly dominating the issues. So what we did, we tried to bring all of those Islamic values and put it, the women's rights from Islamic perspective, and then train the imams and religious scholars class, asking them to be part of the huge campaign of violence, elimination of violence against women. That can be also, if you're looking at the at the violence against women particularly, we have to look who are the influential people that we can use them and start, changing the situation.
Great, and very quickly, we have another comment from Zeyneb on this, and then I've got a question from the chat. Someone wants to talk about the ICC and prosecution, and so we definitely want to get to that. Go ahead, Zeyneb.
Yeah, very quickly, there's just one comment I want to add to this. And thank you, Najla, for bringing up, what you commented on promoting Islamic beliefs on how Islam does promote, respect for women and treating them well. And we don't hear that narrative enough. So I think it's very important. So thank you for making that comment. Very quickly, I just wanted to add that what we're talking about here is a mindset change. And it has to start at a very young age, So, especially in Pakistan, we see that, kids grow up and they know nothing about women's rights. And there's often this perception that if we give women their rights, it's like taking rights away from men. So I think that needs to be clarified at a very young age, and schools should be promoting this and talking about women's rights at a very young age with boys and girls, so that they grow up with the psyche that giving women their rights does not rob them of,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Zeyneb. That is just critical, making sure that the next generation doesn't believe the things that people have believed in previous generations, that they know that they can be authentically who they are, authentically in their religion, authentically the identity that they want to be, but also that is inclusive of everybody. I want to talk briefly about systems change. Someone mentioned, we should be taking, cases of sexualized violence to the ICC, that it's a war crime. And I'm curious about that from your perspective, Najla. Just of note, after the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, with, and there remain troops in the Democratic Republic of Congo because of the Rwandan genocide. There have been many, many, many massacres and many thousands and thousands of women who were raped. And I know and have worked with many survivors, both from Rwanda, Congo, Uganda, elsewhere. And the Akiyesu case was the first case. In 1919, they made it a crime to do this, but the ICC hasn't taken on those cases in a really visible way. The last super visible cases were after the Bosnia War and the Rwandan case. So 1997, they prosecuted Jean-Paul Akayesu. The prosecutor and both of the prosecutors are good friends of mine. And it was the first time that mass systemic rape had been tried as a crime. And as a tool of genocide, and they secured the conviction, and Akiyesu went to prison for life. And I keep thinking, at what point are we going to take this seriously? What are the ways? We have the ICC and ICTR and these mechanisms, but in our own countries, it underscores the point we started with today, is that as long as the systems are set up to fail women, they will continue to fail women. And Najla, I'm curious about your perspective as a lawyer who helped to shape the Afghani constitution. How does this issue, how did you approach this issue? And what is something that each of us need to be aware of?
Thank you. It's very critical. I think I'm looking at the global issues as the changes that happen. I'm not saying that the changes are not happening within a night, overnight. It's a process. You have to be passionate, first of all, and second, you have to find, as we were earlier discussing, the alliance. Particularly, this is important to have the people who are policymakers. They are very influential policymakers. And I think this is the one of the things that maybe it's good to address it even while we are working on the treaty. So this should be one of the point. And coming to the ICC and all these international mechanisms still in place, but unfortunately, in most of the cases, you see that the very limited number of women are there. You know, we have to look at who are the decision makers, even in those structures, or where they are getting the funding. And most of the big, let's say, big players are giving them funding. So definitely they are having, when you get the big funding from bigger players or bigger actors, definitely you will be influenced by them. So one of the things that we have to look at how we can make this violence against women. Like in Bosnia case, I worked on Bosnia and Herzegovina case on the peace record. I had an assignment when I was in UK. So one of the things that they did, the rape, they were raping. The rape were a kind of exchange. What it's called, revenge from both sides in the Balkan War, and unfortunately everything was addressed on those on that time particularly, but unfortunately the only thing was not addressed the women's issues. They raised the issues, but unfortunately was not accounted. I think one of the things that we have to do more advocacies. Particularly, I'm very supporting in the case of the evidence-based advocacies, as well as lobbying, and also working with the funders. Like particularly, I can see the United States, or I mean, most of the treaties was not signed by the United States, even the UN, because they are providing the funding. The moment they are raising their voice, they are cutting the funding. So how we can make the influential policy making advocacies with real influential people within the bigger actor or within the bigger system.
Great, thank you so much, Najla. And I want to note there's a really active discussion in our chat led by Simi Kamal, who's on our steering committee, who has done incredible work with us, but also has been such a supporter of the Red Shoes Day and our Global Day of Solidarity with all survivors and all missing and murdered women, talking about ensuring that the women's agenda is in every sector. You know, that there are a lot of glass ceilings that need to be broken, that, you know, whether it's not just in human rights and women's rights, it's in economics, it's in finance, it's, you know, in entrepreneurship, ensuring that women are in office, that women are, you know, helping to run the systems so that they can be transformed and be more equitable. I'm mindful that we are running short on time, and so I would just like to bring back in Lisa Shannon, who's our CEO, just to give us a quick closing statement, and then if each of you can just give us a brief statement, a takeaway about this Global Day of Solidarity and what it's meant for each one of you, it would be great. And just a matter of technical notice to everybody, we are recording this and we will share it on our YouTube channel later this evening, and you will all get it in your fresh edition of Friday Must Reads early tomorrow morning. So we are very excited for you guys to have participated with us today. Lisa, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
At a moment like this, it often feels overwhelming. The world feels like a very heavy place, and it's easy to forget what it feels like when you hit a tipping point. And we are careening toward that tipping point. There have been a lot of treaties, a lot of global systems change that have that has been achieved over the past 20, 30 years. And it all starts with groups of activists like us in citizen movements demanding more, whether that's landmines, the disabilities treaty, the Bring Back Our Girls movement, all the way across the world, people have been passionately rising up, now more so than ever. And, it's going to feel like a really hard climb until we reach the summit, but we will. So let's just keep together, stay fired up, support each other in it, and we will get there.
Fantastic. And Marina, do you have a brief takeaway today?
I'm happy and I'm overwhelmed with all the support and solidarity today. And I know that all the great ideas that are there in the chat room, they will bring us to a global treaty and to a global commitment to stop violence against women. Thank you so all very much.
Thank you so much, Marina. Zeynab?
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm just really grateful. I'm grateful to all the panelists for joining us today. I'm grateful for all the attendees, and I'd like to say a special thank you to you, Elizabeth, for organizing this and all the hard work that you have been putting in over the past few weeks. It's been a lot of work, and I think we've had a very, very fruitful discussion today.
And I'm so grateful to all of you and every woman who've been so supportive of this effort, and certainly to all of our coalition members and everybody who is a part of this incredible work and who have made every woman just a force to be reckoned with. And Najla, do you have anything else you'd like to share real quickly?
I think, thank you so much for providing this opportunity for all of us to get, and for your hard work, and Lisa as well, and all of us. Thank you to all of us. But at the same time, I would like to make a comment that we have to put all our differences aside and learn from, unfortunately, men, how to push our agenda forward using all of these platforms and solidarities, and make sure that we are getting to something finally.
Absolutely. And I will just, I'm going to let Eleanor wrap us up today. So I will say a quick note. I just am really grateful for this discussion and for so many leaders and who are dedicated to systems change, to all of the allies and everybody who are organizations who are doing the work every day. It's so thankless, it's so hard, and it's incredible to be shoulder to shoulder with each one of you, knowing that we will either walk up this mountain or push it over one way or the other. I'm very grateful to each and every one of you for being a part of this, and we are eminently grateful to the vision and values that Elina Chauvet has shown for creating the Red Shoes movement. We're so grateful and we're so thankful. And I am grateful to see so many of my friends and partners from previous roles who are here. And we will be sharing organizations and pictures, many, many, many pictures over the next few days. So stay tuned. And I'd just like to ask Eleanor to give us just a quick send off in these last few seconds that we have. We are so grateful to you for your spiritual leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am immensely, immensely grateful and enormously humbled at the outpouring, the participation. In Nigeria, we have a broom that is made of several reeds tied together. And we have a proverb that says, if you take one of those reeds and you try to sweep away any dirt, it will not work. But bring all those reeds together and tie them, and you will have an effective and efficient broom. solidarity, my sisters, like those reeds solidly tied together in solidarity. Let us sweep away this scourge, this pandemic that is a public health and human rights emergency, that is violence against women and girls. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate it. We will be in touch soon. And thank you all so much. And I'm going to give you a 30-second outro to enjoy. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.